So, the D-Clan is supposed to be the sworn enemy of the gods, the world nobles, right? So, why in the world is Monkey D. Garp the celebrated marine hero? Why did Monkey D. Dragon, literally the most wanted and dangerous man alive, once wear the uniform as well? And why did they try to push Luffy towards that very same fate? None of it really adds up when you really think about it, unless the Monkey family is actually hiding a long, dark secret so big it might flip the One Piece history upside down. Oh, and since we finally got to see my big man Kong again in the manga, you know, we need to talk about him potentially being a secret member of the Monkey family too. And if I'm being completely honest, the whole reason that I wanted to make this video now was that Rocks here straight up said that Garp should be a pirate. Well, that and Kong, but mostly that here. And it kind of got me thinking, yeah, why isn't Garp a pirate? Like, why does he stay in the Marines when very clearly the rest of his entire bloodline is fueled by revolution and rebellion and are the two most threatful people to the world government as a whole? And all jokes aside, there are a lot of things that just don't add up on both sides of this equation. First, why would the Monkey D's even want to serve the Marines? Even if they just want to protect people, they can do that without being in a hugely corrupt system that they're all aware of. And from the other side, it also makes even less sense why the world government would want Garp and the other Monkey D's to be part of the Marines either, right? You have to remember, we're being told over and over again that the D-Clan is supposedly the enemies of the gods. You know, what the celestial dragons use as boogeyman stories for their children. And last I checked in with my team, I don't think I have enemies working for me at the moment. Might be wrong about that. It's a little bit counterproductive, you gotta admit, right? So why would the celestial dragons, who are the gods of the One Piece world right now, want any Monkey D's anywhere close to them, let alone offering them some of the highest positions like Admiral as they have with Garp? Well, I have three big ideas here for you to explain why the Monkey family serves the world government and how it might tie all the way back to the Void Century, Joy Boy, and the world's secret ruler, Imu. And starting with maybe the most obvious one in my opinion is the idea that the Monkey family betrayed Imu and the 20 Kingdoms. And as a punishment, their family was then forced to serve the Marines in every future generation, sort of like how Zunisha is now being forced to walk around for some great mistake they did during the Void Century. And now look, we already know that Imu gets very salty about people switching sides. I mean, just look how they talked about Nefertari di Lily, for instance. Even 800 years later, they're still pissed about this because her betrayal let the poneglyphs scatter across the world. So just imagine if the Monkey family did something very similar and betrayed Imu in some similar way. And as a punishment, and in order to keep an eye on them, Imu forced them to serve the world government. I'm talking about generation after generation having to serve within the Marines. That would definitely be an explanation for why Garp is so desperate to keep his kid Dragon and his grandson Luffy in check and have them join. They're both acting out against the fated punishment of their people, and if you look at Kuma's flashback, you can see why maybe you wouldn't want to cause a scene here. In case you're thinking that this sounds kind of completely ridiculous, why? I love that idea, man. Hurtful. But okay, I get it. So I really wanted to show you that this is kind of like baked into the story that the Monkey Clan is completely based on, including Luffy. Because there's actually some very obvious mythological inspiration that Oda could have taken for this entire betrayal and punishment idea that we already know about, so it's time to look at everyone's favorite Monkey King, Sun Wukong. In case you don't know, in Sun Wukong's story, he actually rebels against the heavens, causes absolute chaos there, and then gets sealed away by the Buddha for 500 years to learn patience and humility. But before that punishment, he actually ascended to heaven and was even offered a spot as a minor god and, you know, just wanted more. In other words, he wasn't satisfied with what the other gods offered him and thus pushed it a little bit too far, causing a life of eternal punishment afterwards until the events of the Journey to the West, which is the main story. A story, by the way, that all of One Piece is very heavily inspired by, we know that for a fact. But bringing it back to our video, it sounds a lot like what could have happened to the Monkey family way back during the Void Century. Some sort of betrayal or hubris on their end, and then centuries of imprisonment and punishment. But here's the crazy part. The whole reason I even had this idea was that we've already seen a somewhat mini version of this play out in the series. Because do you remember Marineford when Garp was about to go full grandpa rage and murder Akainu for killing Ace? Well, Sengoku, the quite literal Buddha of One Piece in the Marines, grabbed Garp and held him down with his palm, basically trapping him and stopping him from doing what he wanted to do. And as the fleet admiral, the head of the Marines, he prevented Garp from attacking comrades. I mean, if that's not a perfect visual metaphor for the Sun Wukong myth, then I don't know what is in the story. And again, this is only the first of 3 options, but maybe this is what Emu has been doing on a much bigger scale. Emu is the actual god of the One Piece world, so maybe Garp and Sengoku were the micro version of that, and Emu and the Monkey Clan are kind of the big zoomed out version. So what could have happened is that the Monkey family rebelled once, helped Joy Boy maybe, and instead of destroying them, Emu chained them up to the Marines, keeping them close enough to watch, but far enough away from the real levels of power here. And so the monkeys do get to look like heroes while never being able to truly challenge the system itself, and that's honestly way more brutal than just killing them, the entire, keep your friends close but your enemies closer type of deal. And when you really think about it, it kind of would explain Garp's whole deal too. He's insanely strong, he saved the world more than once, but when it comes to actually overthrowing the Celestial Dragons or the world government, like breaking down the system, he doesn't really seem to be able to do it or, even want to do that. But maybe he's not just choosing not to, maybe he can't. Maybe the family punishment is some kind of binding agreement or even a literal curse. I mean, Emu's powers recently seem all to be about demonic possession and contracts and forcing people to do what they want, so why couldn't they do that with the entire Monkey Clan? Because you gotta be honest, when it comes to the Monkey family, all of their personalities don't exactly scream future Marine to me. Like, obviously Luffy was as free-spirited as it gets, but we even see Garp in this depiction by Oda as a kid here. He basically seems like he has the very exact same personality as Luffy. This image does certainly not scream this is gonna be a future Marine at all. He looks like a pirate more than anything, right? With the treasure chest and everything. And in the latest chapter, Rox even said that Garp should have been a pirate. So it would make sense if at some point he was actually forced to become a Marine because of some sort of, binding family curse. And in case you're wondering, yes, we are gonna get to the other 2 options, but first, if Garp couldn't break free from this curse or binding or whatever is happening here, how in the world did Dragon do it, right? I mean, I don't really have an answer for that one just yet, but since Luffy never joined the Marines, then it makes sense why he wouldn't be affected by the curse either. Okay, but now since we've talked about the Monkey family betraying Emu and serving the Marines as punishment, let's get a little bit more controversial here and go with the exact opposite idea. Could it be that the Monkey Clan, despite being a D family, actually betrayed Joy Boy? Yes, I know the D Clan are very much, supposed to be Joy Boy's allies. That's the vibe that we've been getting, the enemies of the Celestial Dragons, the people who smile in the face of death and all of that, but that's exactly why this twist would hit really hard in the story. After all, we do know that the D-Clan aren't just from one country these days. They seem to pop up all over the world. Goldie, Roger, Trafalgar, D-Law, even giants like Jaguar, D-Saul, they all have completely different backgrounds, different cultures, but a shared will and history. And you might know that an idea that I've talked about many times in my videos is that they all were allies of Joy Boy during the Void Century, which means that at some point they were united for a massive fight against the original world government in Emu, and we also know that Joy Boy probably lost this fight badly, which by the way might be what we've been seeing here on the left side of the mural. Now, in war, especially one that changes the entire world, you don't lose like that without something going seriously wrong, right? After all, we do know that Joy Boy must have been incredibly powerful with, his own Nika powers and all the crazy allies that he had. So there's a really good chance that someone on the inside betrayed the cause. By the way, something that is also happening to Rox and the Rox Pirates in this latest chapter, where someone is ratting them out to the Marines too. And maybe this was even someone that Joy Boy trusted completely. And if that traitor was a part of the D-Clan itself, well, that would explain a lot. So what if Luffy's ancestor 800 years ago, that member of the Monkey family, were that traitor? Originally they fought alongside Joy Boy, earned his trust, but at the critical final moment, they might have cut a deal with the other side, and as part of that deal, their family would be the only D family, allowed to properly serve the world government for all future generations, which Again, sounds a little bit crazy, I know, because why would they do that? But what we also have to keep in mind some of what we already know about the Void Century. Overall, on both sides, there were some pretty nasty powers in play, like the ancient weapons that supposedly flooded the world, and we already know that Vegapunk said he didn't really know who was right or wrong here, like, sounds like it was a little bit morally ambiguous. And I don't know, maybe the past Monkey D's thought that betraying Joy Boy was the only way to save the world from being completely flooded and destroyed, and they chose to serve the world government as a kind of way to safeguard the world from those weapons ever being used again, kind of choosing the, lesser evil in their eyes, potentially. But here's the thing. Hundreds of years have now passed since the Void Century, and if all of the speculation was true, then the current generations, like Garp, probably have no idea why their family serves in the Marines. At this point, it might have just become tradition, and if you've grown up hearing stories about serving the Marines as an honorable duty and protecting the people and the world, you wouldn't really question that, right? Especially if your family has always been praised for it and you've been encouraged to become a Marine ever since you were young. After all, Garp has refused to become an admiral on multiple occasions because he explicitly did not want to serve the Celestial Dragons. So we know he's not working for the Marines out of love for the government itself, he's just carrying on what's been drilled into him since childhood probably. And of course, he tries to then pass that on to Dragon and to Luffy, not because he's hiding some evil master plan, I think, but because that's just the regular path that the Monkey family has been walking for centuries now. But I think here's where it gets even more interesting. What if Luffy's father, Dragon, actually found out the truth? What if somewhere along the way, as a Marine, he learned the real reason why their family has always traditionally served as Marines, and that the monkeys are tied to a betrayal that got Joy Boy killed and the ancient kingdom destroyed, kind of enabling the current corrupt system. I think you and me can probably very easily imagine how a man like Dragon would react to that type of information. Suddenly, his whole life and purpose in the Marines would feel like a complete lie, and instead of protecting the people of the world, he would realize that he has been protecting the same old system that had manipulated his own family for generations. And I mean, sure, again, based on what we know from Vegapunk, maybe the world government even started out with a genuinely good and positive goal after the war, but you know how things get corrupted over centuries, and it could just be that now the same force that was protecting the world has now started enslaving it. And Dragon breaking free from this curse could also explain why he's considered the most wanted man in the world now. Also, by the way, you can free yourself from the curse of not having enough One Piece content by joining my official Ohara Patreon, because right there, you will get instant access to a bunch of bonus content behind the scenes, early chapter reactions, community polls, artwork, and a lot more, like early access to podcast episodes and bonus part of the podcast, and even a free weekly newsletter if you don't have money or don't want to support, but still want to get something out of that. Alright, but with that, let's now flip the script one more time and discuss a third idea for why the Monkey family seems to always serve the Marines. And let me tell you, this is my favorite, because what if the Monkey family isn't cursed, isn't being punished, and aren't a bunch of traitors to Joy Boy? What if instead they've been fulfilling a secret generation-spanning plan to infiltrate the world government from the inside and take it down from there? And I want you to really think about this for a moment. Are you okay? The monkeys are part of the D-Clan. Bum, we talked about this. Some of them are somewhat simple-minded, though absolutely broken fighters, like Garp and Luffy, but others do seem like absolute master strategists, like Dragon, for example. So what if the brute force battling didn't really help defeat the world government back in the Void Century? I mean, just look at Rocks not being able to do anything about Emu despite being in the flower room, and so instead a mastermind of the Monkey family laid out a secret plan to worm their way into the system, wait for the right moment, and then pull the rug out from under the Celestial Dragons entirely. Now that would be a very fascinating explanation for why Garp was so insistent on making Luffy a Marine. Not because he wanted him to become a loyal soldier pawn for Emu, but because it's tradition. Each generation gets trained, gains rank, and gets close enough to the heart of the world government to do some real damage should the time be right. And I could absolutely see that being being the reason that Garp was so dead set on making Luffy a Marine too. Now, if this option were to be true, I would not only love this, but it would also completely change how we see Garp as a character. Because on the surface, he's obviously this goofy, donut-munching, beyond broken grandpa who loves the Marines but hates the Celestial Dragons, but underneath, what if he's patiently been waiting and training the next wave of anti-world government fighters for decades? And I mean, that's basically exactly what's now happened with someone like Kobe, who Garp then took in instead of Luffy. Seriously, look at what's going on with this former scrawny deck boy right now. I mean, he's not just a Marine, he's part of SWORD, this shadowy semi-rogue faction inside the Marines that's basically the anti-evil task force. And SWORD already has been willing to bend the rules and make their own calls and, operating detached from the world government's rules. So since Luffy betrayed the family tradition and became a pirate, what if Garp decided to pick his own apprentice next to help finish the monkey family's inside job? But here's the one part I can't really figure out with this plan. If all of this is true, then why did Dragon leave? Well, maybe he realized it couldn't be actually done from the inside, that, they were getting nowhere. Maybe he saw how deep the rot in the world government really went, how the Marines were always going to be chained by politics and the will of the Celestial Dragons without having any real power to do good. And instead of waiting another generation, he decided, no, I'm burning the whole thing down from the outside. I know what's going on. I can do it better. And that would kind of make Dragon and Garp's approaches two sides of the same coin. Garp plays the long game inside the system, slowly moving pieces into place, while Dragon builds an army to smash the system from the outside. Kind of like the idea that Aokiji and Akainu might still be secretly working together. And here is obviously where Luffy comes in too, because all the careful planning in the world still probably wouldn't have been enough to take down the massive world government and its corrupt leaders and powerful weapons, unless there is someone like Luffy, and the next Joy Boy specifically, who's really stirring up the world and making things happen. Which ultimately will lead to the perfect opportunity for Dragon to make his move, which might already be happening in the manga for all we know, and then with the world government in chaos and distracted by both the revolutionaries and the battle for the One Piece with the pirates, including Luffy, that could be the perfect time for the monkey family to finally fulfill their 800-year-old plan. So yes, what I'm proposing is that there is something going on with the monkey family that has been going on for over 800 years, and there's many ways it could be playing out. Because whether you think that the monkey family betrayed Joy Boy, betrayed Emu, or have secretly been running the ultimate inside job for 800 years, the point is clear. And the really crazy part is that this could theoretically go even deeper, which is now the part of this video I'm actually most passionate about secretly. Because let's bring back the single most important character that we just know almost nothing about in the story, the Commander-in-Chief, Kong. Because finally, my man that I've been fascinated with for a long time has made his, once in 10 years appearance in the latest chapter. And in case you forgot, the Commander-in-Chief is basically the link between the Marines, Cypher Pole, and the Celestial Dragons. He's basically the highest ranking non-Celestial Dragon in the entire world, operating above Sengoku, above Lucci, all these people. And I've got a real suspicion that he's actually a secret member of the monkey family, something that I've always really wanted to be true in my headcanon for many, many years. And really think about it. Kong has a significant scar on his left eye that every monkey family member seems to get. I mean, we've seen it on Garp, we've seen it on Luffy, and even with Dragon and his massive tattoo on his left side. So at this point, it's basically a monkey family crest, right? Though, to be fair, there are a lot of other characters who have a left eye marking, such as Viper from the Shandian tribe and Kaido's right-hand man King, which also probably not a coincidence, right? And another point here is that the name Kong is very obviously famous as the fictional character King Kong, who is a giant ape from the movies. But not only name does Kong fit really well with the theme of the monkey family being absolute monsters. I mean, look, we've never actually seen this guy do anything like, besides sitting behind a desk, but just look at the guy. You know that this man will throw hands with anyone and probably win. For all that we know, he probably used to be an admiral and then fleet admiral before he became commander-in-chief, right? And if Kong were to be a Monkey D. Kong, that would change everything about the eventual battle for Marijua, because you just know that there will be a final battle here to take down Emo and the Celestial Dragons, and if we have Monkey D. Kong, then he could have quite literally been laying out secret plans for decades to help the monkey family, you know, his son. I don't know, what would his relation be with Garp? Is that his dad? Like brother? I don't know. Anyways, help the other monkeys take down the government from the inside. But there is even more. There is a very popular theory in the Japanese community that is kind of wild, but somewhat perfect for One Piece logic. And the core idea of this theory is tied to the name of the family itself, Mon-ki. Now in Japanese, Mon means gate. So some fans in the Japanese fandom have pointed out that the Monkey family, as it's known in Japanese, could quite literally mean the key to the gate. And if that's true, well, maybe the world government isn't just keeping the monkey family close to them because they're strong or dangerous or punished or whatever. Maybe they're keeping the monkeys close because they quite literally hold some sort of key to something no one else can do or touch or open, whatever it may be. Really think about this. What if there's a prophecy, for instance, that says that a monkey family member is the only one who can access certain hidden powers? You know, like maybe something like the Eve tree or even Laugh Tale itself. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that, you know, genetics play a role in using special abilities. Just look at Shirahoshi or the Three-Eyed Tribe or the Lunarians, right? And that could explain why we have such high-ranking monkey family members in the Marines, potentially ranging all the way from Admiral to Vice Admiral to maybe even Commander-in-Chief. And to take this another step further, in mythology, Sun Wukong was supposedly born in a place called Flower Fruit Mountain. And we do know that the Sunlight Tree Eve should be somewhere inside of Marijua, inside the Red Line, since its roots go down all the way to Fishman Island, which is, again, right below Marijua. It could even be part of Imu's flower room itself. So, and I do know that we're getting pretty far out here in speculation territory, as we are always, I guess. That's hopefully while you're here, but it just seems like there's something important here with Imu and the flowers and the monkey family that, you know, we all just don't quite have the tools to put together. But let's try anyways, because clearly there is some special connection between the monkey family and the Marines that we just don't quite fully grasp yet. And this weird pattern of monkey family members becoming Marines as a tradition could have been going on for a long time, but look at how it's actually playing out now. Garp stayed in the Marines and did his thing by helping make Kobe a rising new inside hero. Dragon was a Marine, walked away to lead the biggest revolution we've seen in 800 years that will play a massive role in taking down the world nobles. And Luffy, well, Luffy is literally causing the chaos needed for the Celestial Dragons to fall and is kind of, you know, the prophesized return of Joy Boy and Nika and, you know, all the good stuff. You know One Piece. He's the main character. And we all kind of expect that will be the end of One Piece, with the corrupt world nobles being taken down and something new and better taking its place when the, you know, world gets a new dawn. But aren't you curious how things might have turned out if Luffy actually had, you know, fulfilled his family's destinies? Like, what if he followed Garp's wishes in the first place and became a Marine? Would he actually go through with this and maybe even become an admiral? What would that look like? Well, in case you don't know, I've made exactly that video, which ended up becoming the single most successful and most watched video on this channel. So in the slight chance that you still haven't seen this video, it's right here. And otherwise, thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you think could be the secret of the monkey family and if you think it's special or not. And otherwise, thanks also to our Patreons right here. And I will see you in the next video.